Happy Wednesday. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to give the interweb and all the connecting things to sync up and let people know that I'm here. We're going to have a conversation. If you're joining me today for any part of this, just say hi. Drop your name in the comments. Say hi. If you want to add anything to this conversation, drop them down in the comments. I love reading them afterwards. So we'll just give a second here for the internet to get going. If you can hear my computer taking off for flight right now. I think we're going to Vegas today. If you can't hear that, then cool. If you can, it really feels like something is like revving off to take flight. Yeah, so hi, welcome. My name is Akeisha. I am the Creative Resilient Dancer, a mostly online strength program to support dancers in diverse, healthy dancing through workouts. And then I'm also the owner of Stretch by Akeisha, where I facilitate fascial stretch therapy as a way to access more of your body, you release your shit, let go of excess tension. And so those two things I play with, they cross a lot in my own personal life. They cross a lot in my professional life. I'm also a movement facilitator. And these Wednesdays, I'm coming on here until I feel like it's time to stop. But I'm coming on here and just candidly talking about a subject that comes to mind to me, usually on the weekend, that I like to share, be it with a guest or just my little old self. And today it's a conversation around process and finding success in process, and also just illuminating a little bit of the struggle that I find, myself have gone through, other people have gone through, dancers that are going through my program sometimes bump up against these like blocks, these struggles within this like process that we're all going through. And there's so many we're going through at any one given time in our life. We're going through multiple processes. And now I fully admit that I struggle in multiple times of my life, in different areas of my life, with sticking with a process, going through something I know I need to go through. Because sometimes you can look at process as unlearning something, unpacking something, or you can look at it as learning something, sticking with a strategy. When we talk business, it's like strategy. When we're talking dance, it's like learning a new move, learning a dance. Those are all processes. When we're talking about spirituality, unlearning a bunch of things that you learned growing up, process, unlearning, process, and then learning something new, process. So process is going on all the time in a relationship. Y'all, I have a boyfriend for the first time in 5+ years, and it's a beautiful process, and we're constantly learning new things about each other, which is so great. And when we bump a little heads, we have to go through a process, and then it's great, and it's how we look at it. And I think where we don't often spend enough time in is celebrating all the wins, all of the wins. I was taught, be it on purpose, I don't know, but we spent more time on what didn't work, what needs improvement, and what we didn't get right. And it wasn't until I started doing my own self-development work and really, 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 really trying not to fall back into old patterns of my thoughts for a lot of things, and falling back into old patterns when I was getting into my own workouts to fix problematic issues in my body, that this idea and concept and requirement of myself to celebrate what was going right, what was working, how I felt, what was different, that was good, what was, on the scale of getting towards the desire that I was asking for, what was actually fueling that. And it was less about, well, that didn't work, and that didn't work, and that didn't work, and you did that again, and blah, blah, blah. And it was more about, okay, what did work, what did work, what did work, what did work. Yes, you took a note and you did acknowledge what wasn't working, or the pattern that you repeated again, you acknowledge it, but you really move on, and you move on quickly to what was working, and you focus on that. And that came later in life. And that is something that I think I've always tried to instill in my teachings. I remember some students of mine went through a process of learning that no matter what they do on stage, I'm not going to get mad, and that they can create what they need to create in that moment. And they went through a process of completely redoing, 3/4 of the work that we created at a show. And the process was, and the lesson was, well, it's never going to get that bad. Like, you can't fuck it up that bad again. So I listed all the things they did amazing. Like, they looked at each other, they kept going, they didn't stop, they created a new ending, and they stuck to it. And that was amazing, because at the end of the day, y'all gonna fuck up on stage. Well, don't let anybody know. You can talk about it afterwards, but then I'm also gonna want you to just like shift into getting back into the process of knowing what the work is, and taking each step one at a time. Like, get back into that process. So there's so many different things process can be talked about. And today I want to talk about specifically to working out, because this is what I do, this is what I help dancers with, this is what I help movers with, is working out so that like dynamically they're supporting their dance career in whatever kind of genre or plethora of genres they want to dabble in and focus on. Like, I help dancers keep their bodies versatile and dynamic, strong and able. And then I also teach people how to stretch and release and work with their fascia to do that, to expand, to release, and to also strengthen. So when it comes to the process of like working out, I can totally recall for years going to the physiotherapist, getting some exercises, doing them for like maybe a couple days, maybe a couple weeks tops, and only focusing on like that one task or those two tasks and be like, okay, I'm done, I'm better. And then 6 months later, I'm back in the same office with the same person, and they're like, oh, you're back again for this. Okay. And there was never this like acknowledgement that like, okay, Akeisha, there's this process that your body needs to go through. That's a little bit longer than a couple days or a couple weeks. And there's this habit that we need to build that helps you get to where you want to go for a longer period of time. And it wasn't until someone, and this is the only place in my life I can do this, I can only stick to a strategy like written out, from point A to point B in my workouts, because I like write them out, I create them, I stick with them for at least 4 weeks before I move on to the next set of things. And it's the only place in my life I can do that. I don't know why. Even when I'm teaching dance, it always changes every week. But when it comes to working out, it's always the same for me. And I found that was very helpful for me to get my body to where it needed to go. And I would get frustrated because I wanted the result like now. I had so many years where I was perpetually getting hurt, and I was perpetually just focusing on like one area of my body, and it would get better quite quickly. And then I would stop all that. And then, we're repeating cycles, right? We're repeating the same process. But it wasn't until someone was like, okay, we're going to treat the body as like everything. We're tackling everything at every time, because it all has to work together. And as something gets stronger, you're going to find something else that needs more strength. And as that comes, then your attention can be pulled here for this strength. And when that's all healed, you'll notice this. And then maybe you'll go back to point A, and then maybe you'll like bump up to like E and come back. And it was this process of learning that everything has to work together, but also learning that if you keep sticking with it and notice, okay, what's working? This is what I'm saying. Like, later on in life, I was taught, and it was required of me, in order to keep moving forward, I had to start celebrating and acknowledging and noticing, just even being like, oh, that was easier today. I could lift that today. Oh, I didn't have any pain when I slept last night. Like, oh, my shoulder feels really nice today. Oh, I got through class and my like quads weren't burning. Wins. And like, and noticing them, acknowledging them, celebrating them with myself, with my trainer, with fellow people that were doing the work with me. And that helped me keep motivated with my process. So if I think if I wasn't required to acknowledge those things, if my trainer wasn't constantly asking me like, hey, what felt good today? Hey, how did you feel about this today? Did you have pain during rehearsal? Like if he wasn't asking me to call those things out, I don't know if I would have been as quickly to get on board to the workouts if I wasn't relating my process to my experience. And I think that is really so powerful. Like, you're going through something, you're learning something, possibly unlearning at the same time that you're learning. That happens a lot in so many areas of life. Unlearn to learn, to unlearn to learn, to unlearn to learn. Sometimes you learn, and you're like, oh shit, I got to unlearn that because that doesn't work anymore. Right? So, but then taking that process and really feeling it in the experience. And on that note, there's a theme going on right now in my world where I've heard 3 times from 3 completely different people tasks. This is a huge thing in counter technique where we do a task at a time. It's like this, then this, then this, then this. It's like send your arm, send your foot, send your head, blah, blah, blah. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And so 3 people were kind of bringing up this theme of going through a process like step by step, ABC, task by task, and staying in the tasks. So not being like, oh, I'm going to think about my foot, and oh, well, I'm thinking about my foot, I'm just going to think like randomly about something else. Like we were like asked to focus on the task at hand and stay in the task, you might pop out of the task, but then get back to the task, right? You don't want to be in the task and then floating around in space, like in your head. And that is helping you kind of stay on track. And so this is brought up like 3 times with 3 different people. Literally, it was like really, really interesting. And even today, like I knew I was talking about process yesterday, and my class teacher, Joy Davis, said we talked about process today. And I was like, okay, well, there's number 4. So this is really great. This is a great theme. And then another thing that's like collectively being talked about with a whole bunch of people that I've listened to, again, 3 very different people on 3 very different platforms. Obviously, like most of these things were pre-recorded, brought up this, reminder that you're enough right now. Like what you're doing is enough. And I think that is a huge reminder. I mean, I hate to say it, I'm going to say we're coming up to our 1-year anniversary of this new time and space, being in more screen time, more alone time, reflective time. We're coming up to the 1-year anniversary of many things where we were collectively called to unlearn things that we've learned, to relearn things, to go through more processes more intensely for many, many areas of our life. We're coming up to that 1-year anniversary. And so this reminder of that we're enough where we are, like we're exactly where we need to be, and to just keep riding the path that we're on. And if we don't like the path, we can choose another path. Like I just want to say that if you're like, but I don't like my path that I'm on, I don't want to keep riding it. Okay, ask universe for like to carve out a new path and then follow that energy where that goes. We're always in choice to change. Disclaimer, we're always in choice to change. So this reminder that you're enough, that I'm enough. What I'm doing is enough. Inspired me to know that what I'm doing is so good. And I can call for more energy, and I can call for more clarity, and I can call for more whatever I need so that I can up my own game. I can take it to another level. I can focus a little bit more clearly. And I want to say focus a little bit more clearly instead of saying I can do better, because you're doing great. If you want to step it up a notch, step it up a notch. But it doesn't mean that you're doing better than you were 2 seconds ago. It means you just have more clarity, more focus, more drive. It doesn't mean one is better than the other. So you're enough. We're taking things one step at a time, and to celebrate those wins inside the process. So for example, because like, again, I help dancers, I help movers with working out, with strength training to stay diverse and dynamic and strong and able and flexible and adaptable through all the phases and stages of a dancer, a career, a physical lifestyle, those ups and downs of being really, a lot on your plate to being not so much a lot on your plate like that. I love helping dancers be able to be adaptable in those environments through strength training. And again, I'm a self-proclaimed let that shit go facilitator through fascial stretch therapy. So I'm also doing that too. And so a couple of things I want to make note before I hop off here and go teach is a few things that you can make note of to celebrate the successes along the process that you're in. So one thing I think is that no matter what we're doing, setbacks or taking 2 steps backwards or, falling back into something that's like, for my instance, my arm sometimes gets sore and I've done so much work to help it stay strong, but sometimes it comes up. Sometimes these things come up. And so when we have that moment, how frequently does that moment come up for you? Does it increase or decrease? If it's decreasing, success, celebrate it. And how quickly is that time frame between feeling it happen again, experiencing that not so fun experience, and shifting yourself out of that? What is that chunk of time? Is it a day? Is it 2 days? Is it a couple hours? Is it just changing something slightly in your routine to shift you out? What is that time frame that you're in that moment for? That was a big one for me to acknowledge when it came to strength training, is how the frequency of things hurting decreased and the time it took me to get better decreased. So I went from not feeling the effects for weeks to feeling the effects for maybe a day or so. So that's a great one. And I'm just reading my notes, making sure I don't lose track here. So those are some other things. And so you can also pay attention to what's getting stronger. Were things easier now? I love when I go do a workout and then I go to class, I'm like, oh, my hamstrings, I feel them, they're on. I can develope with just so much back net support. My rib cage stays in more alignment. My QL is happy as a clam for so long. And then I'll go and do something that hurts, and then I'll go back to my workout, and I just it just gets better. The ability for my back net to tune in and support me is so much faster to tune into now than it was I would say even a year ago. And then it's even stronger than it was 3 years ago. So these are still things that I'm celebrating. Your sleep. Are you sleeping better, longer? Are you waking up with less tension in the body? Those are things that you can celebrate. Even how you get frustrated, that mind, those thoughts. What is changing in you? Do you get excited about things faster? Do you have more energy? Do you think more positively more often? These are things, these are successes. These are things that inside a process, no matter how hard or easy, in any area of your life, what you think is such a great one to tune into, because if you're thinking more positively, if you feel more happy, if you got more energy, if your mind is more focused on the good than the bad more often, fuck yes, celebrate that until the cows can come home. I just realized in like India, cows do come home. Like cows do kind of live with people. So I was like, oh yeah, the cows can come home, but not here, not in Canada. And one last thing I think is really important in process is observation without judgment. This is a really big one, and I would love to have a conversation with anybody about observation without judgment. It's a tool that I learned in counter technique a long time ago, and it's a tool that I immediately started applying to my life. Like, how can I observe? And I struggle sometimes with this in like the business side of things or the personal development side. It's easier in the workout side and it's easier in the dance side for me to observe my process and what's happening without like judgment on myself, because we are always judging. If you want to, learn more about judgment, Gabby Bernstein's book, Judgment Detox, is a great place to start. It really kind of showcases how we're always judging. It's the energy and the tension behind the judgments that really can affect us. So we can observe, we can like take note, we can be observational about anything in our lives. But when it comes to like you as a person and like, what are you saying to yourself? How are you relating what you're seeing and feeling to yourself without negative judgment? So that, again, we are starting to think of the things, we're starting to celebrate, make note of the things that are working to get us to where we want to go, instead of being like, but you have all this shit that's not. And then you're like, you forget that you're like, but I have all this other stuff that is. So observation with judgment is a great one. So that's my little candid conversation this afternoon about success in the process, reminding us all that we are doing enough. And there's always room to level that up. But that doesn't mean that you're better than you were now. You're just leveling up. And I think there's just different energy in that kind of way of being that creates more space and more encouragement to keep going with whatever process you are going in. And if you want any help with your strength training and the process of that and staying committed to that, I've got lots of little workouts free online on my Instagram. I've got a couple free things on my website, and I will be opening a couple of my paid programs very soon again. So if you're interested in that and you're not on my emailing list, go please to my website, subscribe to the mailing list so that you find out when those things are getting released. And while you're over there, if you don't have one of the free workouts, grab one and start, or head into my Instagram, IGTV lives, and pick any of them. It's a great place to start. You get a feel of how IQ movement, how IQ strength training, and feel the effects and go through your own process through that. So, and if you have any questions, please reach out. And if you want to go through a process of maybe unlearning some things that you've associated with stretching and yoga, and this kind of like negative kind of like vibe sometimes we get with like, oh, but I don't want to stretch. Join me on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Pacific time for a date with your fascia, where I lead you through traditional stretches, but through a fascial awareness lens and a movement directive kind of the concepts of movement, directing movement through space with that fascial awareness to really get you released and moving through your stretches, versus just like, and here's a stretch, be in it, breathe. Okay, cool. There's like so much more to a stretch that you can experience. So if that interests you, head over to my website, stretchbyakeisha.com/expand club. And if you're looking for strength stuff, it's akeisha.com. All the information's on there. All right, y'all, I'm going to go about my day. I hope this conversation gave you something. Let me know, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. All right. Bye.